Hello everybody, Shinjo here, welcome back to the channel, and welcome to Anime Crossover Episode 7. It has been a gap in between the last episode and this episode, but at least it gives me more characters to work with. But if you enjoy this video, hit that like button down below. I'm gonna say if I can hit 7 likes on this video, then I'll get started on the next one. 7 likes, episode 7, I feel like it makes sense. Just to show me that you guys want to see more of this and that I'm not wasting my time posting this if you guys don't even want to see it. But I'm not going to waste any more time. Let's begin and start with the character in the thumbnail, Frieren. This was certainly an interesting one to make. So here is what I went with. So starting with the Pokemon, it really isn't that complicated. I just went with something to tie her magic powers and knowledge of magic. And while Ninetales knows more about curses than magic, I feel like it's tied close together. Plus, Alolan Ninetales' hair flowing kind of reminds me of Frieren's hair when it shows that scene of her in the river. And the Spellbook Prophecy deck, I feel like it's simple. Frieren likes to gather spells. As simple as that. So with those two out of the way, let's begin with the next character on this list. Shizuka Mikazuki from Zom 100. So I knew I wanted to include a character from this show on here, and I just like Shizuka's character arc in the first season. So here is what I went with for her. So Eevee is the closest thing that I could have to her dog Rue in the flashback, but I also feel like you could tie it together with how Eevee has the choice to evolve into different Pokemon, much like now that Shizuka's traveling alongside Akira, she has the freedom of multiple paths in her life. And for her deck, I went with the Lunalights, because the Lunalights have a moon theme, clearly based off of the name, and Shizuka's name has moon inspiration with it as well. But even outside of that, I just personally think it fits. I feel like if anybody would use the Lunalights besides Selena, it would definitely be her. But the next character up on this list is Fuko Izumo from Undead Unluck. We're just going bam, 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 new characters right after another. And here is what I decided to do for Fuko. So, this is going to be an interesting one. Cofagrigus is here mainly as a reference to her Unluck ability. Sure, it's not necessarily the same thing. It's more just that when Cofagrigus is made contact with by the opponent, the ability changes, which is the closest thing that I could see to her Unluck ability. I feel like in hindsight, I could have involved a Pokemon that has Cursed Body as well. So maybe something like a female Jellicent may work, but you'll have to let me know which one you prefer. As far as her deck, again, I went with the same thing that I did with Shizuka, where Fuko's name has a basis in wind terminology, and the Magispectors are all wind monsters. And maybe a bit of a stretch, the Spectre part in the Magispectors could potentially reference Andy, because he's essentially a zombie, but that may be a bit of a stretch. I just feel like the Magispectors being a bunch of cute animals, I feel like Fuko would definitely use it regardless. The next character is Sunraku from Shangri-La Frontier. I was definitely excited for this one because Sunraku plays video games all the time. So I feel like something like this is perfect for him. And this is what I went with. So, easy one, Swallow. It's a blue bird just like Sunraku. Easy. You could also make the argument that Swallow's wings are sharp, like Sunraku's blades, but that might be pushing it. For his deck, I don't know if this would be a wild thing to say or not, but I decided to go with a coin flip deck. Because Sunraku's whole thing in the show is luck, more or less. So whether it's true or not, my headcanon is that Sunraku would enjoy the idea of trying to rig the system and the coin flip aspect of it. And to be quite honest, this is the best thing that I can come up with. Personally, I think it works, but at the same time, I feel like there's another deck that he could use that would work better. But unfortunately, there's no pure rabbit deck that could reference Emu. The next character here is Mash Burn Dead from Mashal. This is one that I was really looking forward to, and honestly, it didn't take as much effort as I thought. Here's what I did. So, dumb enough, but actually very fitting, is Breloom. I mainly did it because so many people call him Mushroom Head, but it also works in the fact that Breloom is a fighting type. It's a bit of a dumb one, and there's probably a Pokemon that would work better for him, but I still think it works. And the Madolche deck, really only a reference to Cream Puffs and the sweets and the like. I just think it works. Next on the chopping block is Hitori Goto from Bocchi the Rock. This was one that was recommended, and I'm really excited to show you what I did. So first of all, we have Mimikyu. Mimikyu is known for having their own little bubble that they hide in, having a loner personality, but also I decided to take it a step further, where Mimikyu wants attention, so it dresses up like Pikachu, and I tied that together with how when Hitori started to learn guitar, she went out of her way to take it to school to get people to notice, but it didn't work. So I think it just worked perfectly. And what I did for her deck, I don't know how this would actually work in real life because you'd have to have main deck monsters, but I decided to go with the Jin monsters that Yuma used in Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal. It's a music-based deck, but for both of these, it works really well because it also references her more sadistic side, which was shown in the show. And personally, I think this works better because my deck idea for her at first was the Valmonicas, mainly just because it's a music-based deck, but I think this works a lot better. Up next is one of my personal favorite characters, Boji from Ranking of Kings. I had to look back to see, but I'm surprised I never put Boji in this series before. But, first time for everything. Here's what I gave Boji. So, the main Pokemon that I wanted to give him is Golurk. It is a bit of a stretch, but like most of Boji's family, it is quite literally a giant. And you can make the argument that the ghost type could reference Kage, but I feel like that might be stretching it a bit. And I legitimately didn't know what I was going to give him as far as a Yu-Gi-Oh deck, but what I decided to do is have a deck revolving around Stinging Swordsman, the monster seen here. It seems a bit odd because if you know Stinging Swordsman, it's a very niche monster, level 1, 100 attack and defense, an ability that allows it to, I can't remember what it is, it might pop back row or something when it inflicts damage directly, but with 100 attack, it's not really going to do much. But the main reason this is Boji's ace, you cannot look at that sword that it's holding and tell me that it's not a carbon copy of what Boji has. You need monsters in the deck to build around this, but I could not come up with this and not give Boji a monster that has the exact same sword as him. Up next is Piccolo. So, with the recent news about Toriyama, I had to include a Dragon Ball character, And since Piccolo was Toriyama's favorite character, I feel like it's only fitting to include him here. And here is what I gave Piccolo. I'm gonna have to explain this one. So before you click off the video, Meganium, it's a bit of a weird one, but there are very few Pokemon that are humanoid but also green, unless you want to take shinies into consideration. But I went with Meganium because Meganium's inspiration is from dinosaurs, and Meganium is essentially one of the last few dinosaurs, and Piccolo is one of the last of his kind. It's a bit of a stretch, but I feel like you could argue it in a way. If you think there's a better Pokemon that Piccolo could have, let me know that down in the comment section. But for the deck, that was where I was struggling with. But what I decided to go with is vampires. Sure, Piccolo's not a vampire in his own right, but Vampire Lord has a cape, Piccolo has a cape, Vampire Lord can resurrect itself when it's destroyed by an opponent's card effect, Piccolo has regeneration powers. I feel like you could see the case here. Again, I feel like it's a very loose connection, but it's the best thing that I can come up with. Up next is the main character of Jujutsu Kaisen, Gojo Satoru. Sure it's supposed to be him, not Itadori? No? Okay. Well, either way, most people consider Gojo the main character of JJK anyway, so I feel like it's only fair to include him. That kind of bit was only for laughs, but to be honest, it does feel like Gojo takes up more screen time than Itadori sometimes. But anyway, here is what I did for Gojo. So, the name Satoru means wisdom, or something close to that. I'm not going to pretend to know. I just wrote down that the name Satoru means wisdom, and Slowking gained wisdom when it evolved, so I feel like you can see the connection there. And no, before you ask, he is not using a deck like Boji that has one random monster. This is Spell Recycler. He's going to be using that alongside monsters like Ryuran. And you may be wondering, why is he doing this? The main reason is Spell Recycler looks like Wizardmon from Digimon. Ryuran looks like Digitamamon from Digimon. He's going to be using a full Digimon deck. Gojo has canonically referenced Digimon in the series, so I feel like him taking a bunch of cards that look like Digimon and putting them together in a deck would 100% be something that he would use. And somehow, even with this mishmash of cards, he's still gonna somehow win. But up next is the last character in this video, Kyotaro Ichikawa. I recently finished the first season of Dangers in My Heart, and I'm really excited to get into the second season, so I had to represent the show somewhere here. And I feel like there's no better spot than Ichikawa, the really main character of the show that goes through the biggest growth in the show. And here's what I did for him. Unfortunately, even with all those high words of praise, I still wanted him to remember his childhood. Cacturn, a creepy Pokemon, and how Cacturn stays still watching unsuspecting people in the desert. Ichikawa kind of stayed still at school and life until he started literally and figuratively moving after meeting Yamada. And the Yu-Gi-Oh deck, it's the Ghost Tricks. They're a bit comedic, but they are still horror based at the end of the day, so I feel like that fits. But those are the 10 characters in this video. Again, if you want to see the next episode of this, 7 likes is the goal. If you have any characters that you want to see me include in that next episode, leave them down in the comment section. Because honestly, it was hard for me to come up with 10 separate characters. There were some characters that I had to scrap, or some characters that I had to change from the show. My initial plan was Vegeta instead of Piccolo, but I feel like it was easier to make a case for Piccolo. But I hope that you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Momentai!